By 21 weeks, your baby can respond with movement to the sound of her father, to sounds outside of her mother's body. At this point, your baby can survive outside the womb, and also in 40 states, you can kill her. By 23 weeks, your baby's eyes will open. She will have visible fingerprints and toe prints, and she will very likely survive if born prematurely. Also, in 29 states, you can kill her. At this point, the laws begin to get blurry. 22 states then impose certain degrees of legal bans on killing fully formed, viable infants. Notably, 7 states do not. Nothing at all. Oregon is a great example of this. Oregon has had no abortion restrictions for the past 3.5 decades. That means a mother can murder her baby as she gives birth with no penalty at all. And Oregon is not alone among these barbaric states. Even states like New York. New York purports to have restrictions on abortion, but they don't. They actually leave the door open to abortion at any point up until birth through vague language regarding, quote, threats to the life of the mother. To be clear, abortion is never medically necessary. But by pretending that it is, infanticidal politicians such as New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo can hide the enormity of their laws, such as the recently passed Reproductive Health Act. This law, in practice, permits abortion up until the moment of birth. It actually goes even further to amend the New York Penal Code, such that prior to the law's passage, if you killed a pregnant woman, you would be charged with double homicide. After this psychopathic law was passed, that penalty was diminished. You would only be charged with a single murder. Andrew Cuomo, when he signed the bill into law, had the audacity to say, "God bless you all," to the pro-abortion politicians. He then lit up the World Trade Center in pink. Better to have lit it up in red. Cuomo's law was welcome news to Anthony Hobson. Anthony Hobson earlier this year murdered his pregnant girlfriend by stabbing her in the stomach. Prosecutors initially hoped to nail him on double homicide. But thanks to Cuomo's law, Hobson now faces a far lighter sentence. New York has long been key for the abortion industry. New York shows us also the particularly devastating effects of abortion on minority populations. Nationally, 36% of all abortions are performed on black women, even though black women constitute just 13% of all women. In New York City, 41% of pregnancies end in abortion. That is a horrifying figure in and of itself. But just among black women, the number jumps to 60%. More black babies in New York are aborted than born. In 2011, the pro-life group Life Always put up a billboard in the city that pointed out that the most dangerous place in New York City for a black child is in his mother's womb. This was met with shock and offense. The black city councilwoman Letitia James called the billboard, quote, highly offensive. The Life Always board member Stephen Broden, also black, noted that the billboard is far less offensive than the genocide of black babies currently taking place in New York, while white leftists like Andrew Cuomo smile and applaud. Now, in Governor Cuomo's defense, something I never thought that I would say in my entire life, at least he isn't as bad as the Democratic governor of another state that pretends to have abortion restrictions, namely Virginia. Back in January, Klan hood aficionado Governor Ralph Northam said on radio that if a baby were to survive an abortion in Virginia, that baby could simply be murdered after birth. He said, quote, if a mother's in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered, the infant would be kept comfortable, the infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired, and then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. A discussion would ensue over whether or not to murder the living, breathing baby sitting right there on the operating table. The left rejects the whole discussion. The left says, oh, come on, it's the 21st century. We are simply keeping up with the rest of the world. But that is not true. In fact, the United States is very much an outlier in its barbaric embrace of abortion. In France, a nation that is in many ways far more progressive and secular than the United States, abortion is severely restricted. In France, you can only procure an abortion up until the 12th week of pregnancy. The people who invented the guillotine have a more life-affirming view of abortion than we do. 12 weeks. That is a far cry from making the baby comfortable before snuffing out its life on an operating table in Virginia.